Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Wilder Ride, where we are getting wilder by the minute, a podcast that celebrates the films of Gene Wilder 1 minute at a time. And for season number 2, we are diving into Blazing Saddles, one I wouldn't do that if I were you, minute at a time. I'm your host, I'm Alan Sanders.
I'm your co-host, Walt Murray.
And it is our distinct pleasure to welcome back two guys who came on separately in season 1, but normally they're a whole group anyway. We're missing the third part of that wheel, but it's okay. We've got two guys from the Indiana Jones Minute. We'll start first with Tom Taylor. Welcome.
Hey, thank you very much. It's good to be here.
And Pete Mummert. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited.
We love having you guys back. I know, and I think we can go ahead and break some of the behind the curtain. Jerry was scheduled to be with us, but on the date of our recording, it was the day after the passing of Dick Dale. And obviously that is a huge blow to Jerry, having toured with him for many years. And he obviously has bigger things on his plate right now than recording these minutes. I know he sends his condolences. He wishes he could be here, but he really has a lot on his plate. So, and I told him, dude, this is the least that you should be worrying about right now. We'll hook up with you some other time.
Life is the enemy of podcasting. That's what we're learning.
It really
and
is.
vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I didn't have any responsibilities whatsoever, this would be so much more fun.
Really, yeah.
Yeah.
Easier to plan and schedule. And, yeah.
Well, I keep thinking, when I win the lottery, then I build the studio.
yeah.
When I build
Yeah.
the studio, then I podcast to my heart's content.
Yeah.
Well, you guys were with us last season, but we've done this with every one of our guests because this is one of those iconic films. I think everyone either knows of it or all of our guests have not only seen it, everyone so far universally has loved it. They all have some very similar comments to make, but we always like getting the brand new first day in on a run with guests. We want to get their take. So whoever wants to start, we'll kind of have a round robin discussion, whatever. But in general, Blazing Saddles, what do you guys think about the movie?
I love this movie. I've always loved this movie. This is, when I was on for Young Frankenstein, I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen either of those in a while, and I hadn't seen Blazing Saddles. You know, this is the first time I've watched it since Young Frankenstein, with you guys, and I think this might be the one. This might be the one. This might be the Mel Brooks movie for me. This one, you know, this is the one that totally nails everything. I mean, Young Frankenstein is brilliant and awesome, and it's like maybe a close second, but it's like I don't know. This one's got everything, and it's beautiful.
Well, I might make everybody sad here. I did not like Blazing Saddles when I saw it when I was young.
Oh, Pete.
Well, wait a minute. No,
Well,
you're not
we're
going to
done.
make us sad. You're staying consistent with, I think, everything I've ever heard.
But I did enjoy it a lot more this time around.
So
But
is this
I-
like only your second or third time seeing the movie?
Maybe third. Yeah, maybe third.
Really?
I've realized one thing. I don't know what it is. I've wondered what it is. There's something about Mel Brooks that I've never quite like climbed on board with. And I think partially I have a terrible misophonia, and like certain sounds just drive me up the wall. And for some reason, the sound design in his movies, he likes to highlight like every swallowing sound or belching sound or chewing sound. And I think that sometimes that's a little rough for me.
Wow.
That's so funny you bring that up. There was a guy that followed me tonight on the radio down in Atlanta who did an entire episode. He goes, I finally figured out what I suffer from. And that's what he said. What's it?
Misophonia. Yeah, certain
Misophonia is
sounds
like,
just drive you up
if
a wall.
somebody like starts to smack their gums or chew ice or make kind of mouth noises, he said, I'll pay him $20 to stop. He said, I've walked up to people in a restaurant saying, you're so close to me, can I give you $20 to not do that again?
Oh, man, I need to start going and hanging out at the restaurants Bart goes.
I know, I need to find out where Mark Aram's going.
Get your misophonia.
Get your lips smacked.
I might drive him $100 crazy.
Well, you know what, though, Pete? I think this is because, and Walt and I talked about the sound design in terms of some of the Foley effects. This is very much a live-action cartoon. All of the bonks, the thunks, the gunshots, it all sounds like it's a Warner Brothers Merry Melodies cartoon.
Mm-hmm, that's true. And some of that I like. Like some of it I like. It's just some of it kind of a little bit like nails on a blackboard for me.
So you battled through it for us. Aw.
Pizza Trooper.
Beyond that, what do you think of the movie?
Yeah, overall, I enjoyed it this time. There are definitely parts I love. So I think I would give it a strong like, maybe a good like at this point.
Well, okay, then I got to ask this because I think Tom kind of coordinated like the 3 minutes that we're doing with you guys. You said there are moments you love. Do we get the lucky jackpot? Do these 3 minutes hit any of those moments you love?
I enjoy these minutes. So this is
okay.
Yeah, Tom chose
because
well.
this is one of my all-time favorite moments in the movie, simply because I get to watch the Waco Kid do his stuff to all the bad guys.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's before we get into the actual minutia of this minute, since we're talking about the movie, this is something that Walt and I have talked a whole lot about with other guests. We hear so many people say this is one of the funniest movies ever. We see what it's doing. We know why it's doing what it's doing. It's a great movie. This is wonderful. My favorite or in my top 10 of all time, but you couldn't have it today. And it throws me for a loop. It's like universally everyone agrees what a great movie or what a funny movie and love the underlying message. But you can't do it today.
Yeah.
I don't know how to react to that.
It's probably true in more ways than one, actually. I mean, I'm sure most people who are saying it are referring to like, just the race angle and the free use of some language and everything. A lot of it's, I was going to say outdated, but the sort of point is that it's outdated. Like they're facing it head on in this movie and, just holding it up to the light and making fun of it. So that's kind of timeless, but I feel like audiences now might be like, hey, what's going on? I'm bristling. Stop it. Quit using that word. It's not funny. And they might have a point. I'm not sure, but
I'm not allowed to think beyond what the use of the word is because the sound is bothering me.
It is.
Right.
Well, actually, it is a very like loaded, like just hearing that word spoken like that, just like, whoa.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like Voldemort or something.
Yeah.
That which must not be named.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I do think there's also an element that's like, I feel like there's a little bit of like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band about this movie, where like that album, I had this problem as like a younger kid when I was first hearing the Beatles. Like, what's the big deal about Sgt. Pepper's? Like everybody does this stuff now, whatever, big deal. Like the if you miss the pioneering thing that made what you're used to now commonplace, you might not think it's as impressive. And I think this movie like did a lot of amazing things for the first time. And if you tried to do it again today, people will be like, oh yeah, well, that's how movies are made. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be as special or as groundbreaking, I think.
Yeah.
Well, what about the message, especially for Pete, since this is like the third time you've watched it, but one of the things we've heard from a lot of our guests was and most of them did see it multiple times when they were younger and then commented once they got a little older, a little wiser, usually in college, they were like, oh, there's another layer to this movie. There's a whole lot more going on. How did you feel since this was only your third time seeing it?
Yeah, I would agree with that, actually. Like, a lot of the depth of this movie I'd never seen before, and I really appreciated that.
Tom, what about you? Can you remember when you first started realizing there was more than one layer to the jokes and some of the underlying comedy?
I think maybe every time I see it, I pick up not just more like this time watching it, just a couple days ago for this was the first time I realized, oh yeah, not only are there little like direct, like Candygram from Mongo, like, direct Bugs Bunny-isms in this movie, but like Cleavon Little is across the board a Warner Brothers cartoon character. Like he and throughout the entire movie, just like his like, glances at the camera and like kind of like dialogue, kind of narrating for himself and stuff like that. I kind of never really fully appreciated that until this most recent viewing. And that was kind of awesome. And yeah, so I think, I don't know, maybe like, yeah, there is the stage where you're watching this on cable and you kind of feel like you're not supposed to, and your parents are in the other room and you kind of appreciate it in that way. But then, I think maybe college or something. And it's one of those movies that, by the time you're watching it in college, like everybody else has been watching it on cable for 10 or 15 years. And so you all kind of already know it, but then you're sort of finally actually watching it, like from beginning to end and like appreciating the whole thing and kind of getting it all. And there are a few movies like that where your maturity catches up with the movie or vice versa. I'm not sure. And you get to appreciate it as a thing.
I heard somebody breathe. I didn't know if they were getting ready to take a breath and go.
Somebody was just amazed at Tom.
I know.
That was amazing.
Yeah, I've always.
Okay, a couple more kind of set the stage questions or set the table. Walt and I both saw this movie first on television, and we commented early on in this season how growing up in the late 70s, early 80s, when it finally hit, CBS the first time in 79, and then was on over and over and over again, it had the N-word. It had almost all the racial epithets, but it bleeped out the fart noises because apparently that's what was offensive. Did you guys see the TV version first, or did you see only the theatrical one?
I think I saw it on a VCR first.
Oh, sure.
So have you seen the TV one that has like the multiple times that Bart beats Mongo, or only just the one time?
I think just the one time.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the spreadsheet, you guys got to go back up. We had our guests earlier when we talked about when he defeats Mongo with the candygram. And it was in the script, and actually there were 4 times he beats Mongo. They filmed 3 total, and they used all 3 in the TV version. So for the longest time, thanks to the advent of the VCR, I recorded the TV one, so that was my version.
Nice.
Wow.
So when I got the one first on DVD, I was like, where's the scene where he goes diving for the Spanish balloons? And where's when he puts the quarter in the machine to play draw with the fake sheriff? And I was like,
that sounds good. That sounds really
those
funny.
were outtakes for the TV. I was like, oh.
Wow.
Well, and I think of all the stuff that we have seen across both movies, Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles, that's the only stuff that was cut that we were like, oh, crap, that would have been really good. I wish they had left that in.
Yeah.
For your guys' benefit, not only did he beat him with the candygram, the very next one, it was sort of like an arcade. There was a big, like full-size but robotic-looking sheriff, and he basically says, as Mongo goes by, he's like, hey, you're a big fat fairy. And Mongo goes to pull his gun and goes, well, if you want to draw on me, you got to put a quarter in the machine. And talk about Bugs Bunny. So he puts the quarter in, he's waiting to draw like this game, and you hear Bart off to the side going, all right, now draw on the count of 3. And on number 2, a cannon opens up from the chest of the sheriff and blasts Mongo in the face. I mean, it's brilliant. And then the second time he beats him, he convinces him that there's a well standing above the Spanish Armada where all these doubloons had been, are going to be recovered. And Mongo goes, Spanish balloons? And he's like, right on. And he goes diving in this ancient suit. And then at the very last second, Cleavon Little lowers a little sign that says, whoop, time for my lunch break. I'm not going to crank the air anymore. And you see a little sign that says, put 25 more cents in for air. It was just like a cartoon.
That's awesome.
But the one they didn't film, which I wish they had, the final one that beats Mongo, is he convinces Mongo that there's this brand new Canon camera where you climb into a giant cannon and it fires into another cannon to take your picture.
Wow.
And he literally pulls both lanyards at the same time to fire 2 cannons where Mongo's in one and a cannonball's in the other. And that's how he supposedly defeats Mongo. So I can't believe that wasn't in the theatrical release.
Yeah.
Do you think was it just because of time? I mean, it's a fairly long movie already. Was it just
I don't know.
cutting for time?
And Walt, I don't think we found anything other than they decided the stuff they had to cut for TV, or to make more commercial breaks, they put a lot of stuff back in the TV release that wasn't in the theatrical.
Well,
Wow.
and just for perspective, this is a 93-minute movie. Young Frankenstein was 106 minutes. So
okay.
This would have only added about 5 minutes to the movie. So I'm really kind of at a loss as to why they cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really is good. It's fast-paced, and it is more, it's a deeper explanation of how he defeated him. I think it would have been great. I think it would have added a lot to the movie.
Well, and for me, that's the only version I knew for so long that is my version of Blazing Saddles.
Are there
awesome.
versions in this that are new that you didn't have in the TV version? Are there scenes in this?
The only thing that's different is they left all the language in that they
okay.
did bleep some
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
But for the most part,
And
no.
the campfire scene, the farting noises were covered over by horse whinnies on TV.
My God.
They
Why
left
are those
the
people making
sense.
horse noises with their butts? That's weird.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know. And
Exactly. Like why are they sitting up and sitting down and sitting up and sitting down? The horses are going crazy.
And we've talked about this a little bit. They left all the N-word and all the other racial language in, but took out the farting. So
Right.
it's such a bizarre thing of what the code was at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, they didn't say things like on TV, we couldn't say shit kickers or prairie shit, or
Yeah.
our town is
Yeah.
turning into shit.
Or
They just-
Methodists.
like our town is turning into, and you hear like somebody hit like, yeah, they could say Methodist. Actually, I don't think they said Methodists.
Oh, really?
Huh.
I think they took that out because it was like making fun of religion or
yeah, that
something.
might have been. Yeah, gotten a lot of angry letters.
But I know a lot of people go, wait a minute, we've already listened to those minutes. But I wanted to kind of set the stage for these guys because, I mean, there's so much depth to this that we've already talked about, and you guys are only coming in for these 3 minutes. This is I'm with you, Tom. This is my absolute favorite Gene Wilder / Mel Brooks movie because I can watch it over and over and over. I never get tired of it. I love the message. I love Bart. I love Gene Wilder. It's one of the few movies where Gene Wilder doesn't ever go bananas. He's just calm and eye twinkles, and you just love him. So this is my favorite movie with the two of them.
I'm with you. And it's got so many. I'm looking at Slim Pickens right now. Slim Pickens is so amazing every single time and everything. I'm always thinking about. I quote him from Doctor Strangelove constantly, and I should start quoting him from this now more. It's like this is
You just have to be careful of which lines you use.
Yeah, that's very true.
Or make sure you're in the right company. We did talk about this. We use what in the wide world of sports is going on here all the time. Like in general, every day. I go to my kids, there's like a big rack. I'm like, what in the wide world of sports is going on? I'm like, what the hell is wide world of sports, Dad?
Right,
Sorry, it's a show I grew up
levels. A whomping and a whooping.
Is Slim Pickens always playing Slim Pickens in movies?
I hope so.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know what?
He's playing an autobiographical character.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities, but what I had mentioned before, because he's done some more dramatic kind of roles or where he's a little bit more of a heavy.
Uh-huh.
And I remember because the first two movies I ever saw with Slim Pickens, and this was actually like back to back, was Blazing Saddles and then in the theater 1941. And I thought, okay, so he's just the goofy funny guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw him in something else. I can't remember. I'm like, wait a minute, he's supposed to be the goofy funny guy. Because as a kid, you just assume everybody's the same, right?
Yeah.
Whoever they are on screen, it's who they really are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, since we're on Slim Pickens, and it's at the very beginning of the minute, let me go ahead and set the stage for where we are now that we've sort of level set our guests and had some fun talking about the movie and our experiences with it. We are actually starting this minute right now. We are on minute number 67, and we're going to start off in the middle of the sentence where we left off yesterday with Taggart saying, so they can appoint a sheriff, and we're going to end this minute with, how about a little applause for the Waco? And that's where we end. We've got a lot of folks in here, and Walt, yesterday we were talking about this, just what Taggart is saying is so outrageous, it's funny, but you almost feel weird saying it's funny.
Yeah, this is one of those that you kind of laugh at and go, yeah, I probably shouldn't be laughing at this.
Because yesterday he's talking about, we've gone through the good effort of slaughtering every last Indian, and for what?
Right.
Like that was the last line.
The only time you see any representation of Indians, I'll just say Indians for the nomenclature of the movie, but the Mel Brooks scene earlier on, and he kind of makes the exact same joke, like they're darker than we are. Woof.
Yes.
Woof. It's sort of like the the Indian thing in this movie.
Well, and of course the joke there being like a lot of the spaghetti westerns and westerns that Mel Brooks would have watched, most of the times they either cast Italians or just darker skinned Americans. They wouldn't actually teach and put Indians into a film.
Yeah.
I was watching the documentary about Leonard Nimoy last night on Netflix that his son made, For the Love of Spock, and they're just going through all his TV appearances from before Star Trek, and sure enough, he played an Indian on, I think, Gunsmoke.
I think it was. I saw that documentary not long ago. Great documentary.
Yeah,
I had to rewind it. I was like, that is just bizarre.
A lot of makeup.
Yeah.
I guess that's all it takes.
I guess so. And he's like 8.5 feet tall. I mean, he is not an Indian.
Well, it's kind of like that famous the environmental commercial, the crying Indian.
Mm-hmm.
And he was Italian. Yeah.
Even though he tried to convince people for several years that he was an Indian.
Yeah.
Including changing his name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow.
Well, the reason I bring up yesterday's last line, because it bridges right where we are, because he says, and for what? And here's where we start.
So they can appoint a sheriff that's blacker than any Indian. I am depressed.
I love the I am depressed line.
That is really awesome.
I do too.
Like, all of this work and hard effort and all of this due diligence, and it just didn't pay off.
Can't a guy just slaughter an entire race and let it work out for once? I am depressed.
All this genocide for nothing.
Oh, I just feel like it was just a total waste of time. I mean, so we're laughing at it because we realize how ridiculous it is, but then you're like, God, are we really laughing at somebody who's complaining about the effort of slaughtering every last Indian?
Yeah.
But for what?
It's kind of funny. It's a funny line. It's not a funny thing. It's a funny line.
Right.
Oh, that's a good distinction. I like that. It's a funny line, not a funny thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be our disclaimer. Look at this whole movie. Funny line. It's just not a funny thing.
We're laughing at it, not with it.
Right. Right. It's kind of one of those things that if you put too much thought into it, you're like, oh, geez, that's really fucking horrible.
I'm a bad person.
All right. Well, our good friend Bart and Gilliam here, who we did find out would hung out with Slim Pickens a lot and actually became lifelong friends.
Oh, nice.
I love this, where he kind of gets very comfortable, leans on his shoulder, and provides what I think is a reasonable solution to the problem. Excuse me, Mr. Taggart. I hate to see you. I hate to see you looking like this. Just, how about if we were to shoot that guy dead? He's like, would that pick you up some? Slim is perfect. He's like, that might help.
That might help.
And not even touched. Not even that it will. It might. Might as well kill him. Let's just see.
I'll give it a whirl. I'll try anything.
I'm willing to give it a go. I mean, it's not going to hurt me.
Have we ever seen Bart and Gilliam in anything where he's frowning? Has he ever frowned in his life?
No. We had a 2-hour interview with him and he didn't frown once.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
No, Walt, he did.
Oh, well, I take it back. Yeah, there was about a 30-second run that he wasn't real happy about.
Oh,
if you guys, we'll let you in on this story too. And for those folks who have heard the story before, if you notice, and the way they did credits back then, Bart and Gilliam's name is not in any of the opening title credits.
Oh, wow.
Even though he was a major character, and Mel Brooks made it up to him, putting him in at the end, we found out, talking to Burton, that the way contracts were written then, he lost out on what he estimates between $1 and $2 million in any kind of appearance fees and other things because he was not in the opening title credits.
Oh, man.
And it was a total mistake on Mel Brooks's part, according to Bart and Gilliam. We have not gotten the other side of the story, although we've reached out to Mel Brooks multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
But he said that Mel apologized for not submitting the contractual paperwork for billing, which was different than for payment as the actor.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and Walt, I mean, that was, I think, the only time that Burton was like, I almost felt weird and I had to make like a joke to get us back on track and say, let's start laughing again because this is really heavy all of a sudden.
Yeah, and we were kind of like, do we leave that in or do we
yeah,
what are we
right now
to do
it's
with
still
that?
Yeah. Right now it's still in the interview we're going to release at the very end of this season 2, but I keep going back and forth. Do I want to leave that in there about him talking not really bad about Mel Brooks, but he said, that's the one thing I wish Mel Brooks would apologize to me about.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Well, and you know, one thing about these movies by minutes, we're not gotcha journalism. So it's kind of like,
you're fans.
How much do you know? Yeah, we're fans. That's right. It's like, that's not really what we're here to do. We're not Phil Donahue. We're
right. I have no problem pointing out if a shovel's pointing one way in 1 minute, one way the next. That's continuity. That's funny. That's ha-ha. But, he's kind of bad-mouthing Mel Brooks, and I don't know.
Yeah.
And he says Mel won't take his calls anymore, and I'm like, can we move on to the next subject now?
Yeah.
So is there anything
like
funny?
On Charlie's Angels.
Yeah. So then that one scene where you're just going to murder a guy. Can we talk about that?
Can we get back to a pick-me-up? That might help.
That might help.
Yeah, I'm just depressed after that.
All right. Well, we've we watched as Taggart sits up in his saddle, and just as Lyle's pulling his gun out, we do get a cut back to the only guy left on horseback on Bart's side of the team. We've got the Waco Kid, Gene Wilder, and he's just this. You know, Walt, we talked about this before when we had what was your actor friend Adam
Boyer, yeah,
Adam Boyer, where he said Gene Wilder scowling and frowning on his worst day is still more likable than I would if I was smiling.
Yeah.
And yet he delivers this line where you're just like, how does anybody not realize that you probably should listen to him when he goes,
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a smooth and just very level delivered line. He's got his hand up by his mouth. He's just like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. I love it.
I like there are two movies that this really seems to be channeling. Because he seems like he's right out of Shane. Like he seems like he's Shane in this movie, but especially this part right here. And even the music in a lot of this movie reminds me a lot of Tex Ritter's soundtrack to High Noon, his theme song to High Noon.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like they were really borrowing a lot, or, you know, parodying a couple of those movies.
No, I don't doubt that. I mean, that especially when you get into the more Western sounding feel versus like church hymns and stuff where it's being kind of silly. But yeah, no, I think you're right. And I love the fact that the way the script was written, they wanted an older, aging Elkie to be in the role. But the story goes that the guy that they had finally gotten on set had lied about his being in recovery and actually went through the DTs and started spouting green crap all over the place. And they had to eventually call Gene Wilder in at the last minute. Yeah, they had two guys in mind beforehand. The guy they brought on set was Gig Young. Gig Young started to just go through convulsions on the set. They called Gene. Mel Brooks called Gene because that's the role Gene wanted. Gene wanted the Waco Kid, and Mel Brooks was like, no, you're a young Jewish guy. I need an old, wrinkled, washed up Alkie. And so he actually cast an Alkie, and that's what happened. You know, he got the wrong guy.
It's too bad Alan Ladd was dead at this point. He would have been good too.
Yeah.
They just bring him back.
So the line here, when Lyle says to him, he goes, don't pay attention to that Alkie. That's the only time I'm like, I don't know if that really works because Gene Wilder doesn't look like an Alkie unless his reputation precedes him.
I wondered about that too. I mean, he has to tell his whole story to Bart earlier on. And you'd think if he was, I don't know. Everybody knows the Waco Kid, it sounds like. Like, even Bart is like, hey, you're not the Waco Kid. He was like the fastest gun in the West or whatever. And so he's famous enough, but it doesn't seem like everybody knows that he's like washed up and alcoholic now. But then this guy seems to know. So it's a little, yeah.
Or is he just known as the town drunk in Rockridge? Like, this is the last place the Waco Kid was, but nobody remembers his story. They just remember the washed out drunk who's been in town in cell number 2 the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Well, and he seems to know about everybody else. He knew about Mongo and some of these other guys. So they may have just been familiar with each other.
That could be.
Yeah.
Well, and then let me ask this, because he says,
He can't even hold a gun, much less shoot it.
the guy's not up there with the tremors or looking like he's got like some nervous tics. The guy's like rock solid and looking like he's staring at him. It doesn't it doesn't logically make sense to me as a film watcher. I think maybe is this bravado, or he just thinks, well, I know this guy's been drunk as long as I've known him, so whatever act he's doing on his horse, it's not going to last very long.
Yeah, I guess if you know the guy to be a drunk currently, you figure, well, however cool he looks there, sitting right there, maybe he's like sitting on his hands or something. He's doing everything he can to like, look cool. But he's not gonna, step up to the plate.
Try not to shake.
Yeah.
Try not to shake.
But like he's so un-Gene Wilder here too, because he just looks like such a badass. Like he's all in black and he's just so like serene up there. And you're like, I would not mess with this guy.
I love it. In fact, even the way they've got the lighting, like the brim of his hat is just perfect that you've got shadow across his eyes. Like he's keeping the sun out of his eyes, but the rest of his face is lit up. It's a gorgeous shot.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of also reminds me of the scene in Gran Torino where Clint Eastwood comes up on the guys harassing his neighbor, the girl from the neighborhood, and he gets out of the truck and he says, have you ever had one of those times when you messed with the wrong guy? Well, this is one of those times.
Yeah.
And it's almost the same thing, and then of course Clint Eastwood pulls the 45 out of his belt. And it is that really awesome character that you have where everybody's underestimated him, and he's not going to take this lying down, and he's going to defend, in this case, his friend, in that case, his neighbor. And it really is kind of a cool character to be that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all of our adulation and love, all of a second, I'm gonna have some problems with right here, right around second 38. You hear them calling 1, 2, 3. Obviously, that is a different track because it looks like what we're seeing when we cut to these guys is some of them are jumping the gun and making the mimicking look like they're shooting.
Yeah, you can see the
but
recoil.
they're not.
It's interesting.
Yeah, and you're like,
which doesn't make any sense to me because I thought, well, are they pulling the hammer back? But none of them pull the hammer back.
And you see like the guy's arms are going up, like it's like they're pretending like they're shooting.
Right. And it doesn't make any sense to me when I watch it in like one, frame at a time.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Maybe they're
Not a
sort of like
single one is
flexing their
caught.
wrists, sort of like, you kind of like shake it out and like, okay, now I'm aiming, you kind of aim and then you kind of shake it out a little bit and then you readjust. And then,
Well,
does look
I
super
doubt
weird.
that they were this intentional, but sometimes when you're shooting, particularly inexperienced shooters have a tendency to anticipate the shot, and they'll move the tip of the barrel. They'll move the gun, which moves the tip of the barrel and gets the shot off target right before they pull the trigger. So I was kind of wondering if it wasn't some of that, and just kind of a nervous tick or something like that when you've got the gun in your hand.
Yeah. It's also weird that they're using like 7 or 8 guys just to shoot Bart. Like, why didn't Lyle just shoot him? Not that I want him to, but I wonder why he didn't.
Well, they're got to entertain Taggart.
I guess so. That's true.
Well, and at first I thought there were 7 guys there, including Taggart, and of course Taggart doesn't have his gun out. And at first I thought, well, 6 bullets in the gun, 6 guys, but he's actually got 2 guns, and he draws both of them.
Well,
yeah,
there are 8 guys.
There are 8 guys there, so I must have counted in a tighter shot than you did, or you're really drunk and counting too many people.
Don't trust that, Alki. He can't count that cowboy, let alone
see it
shoot
double.
Well, I did just take a sip of a Bullet Bourbon Frontier whiskey, so that could be my problem.
We like to get in character for these things. I want to ask if you guys, if you've got it on your screens, if you can, the second time we see, like, it almost looks like there's some guys at the end that are jerking right around seconds 40, 41. I'm wondering if they reversed the film because they wanted one more shot of them lined up, because it almost looks like it's a reverse of, instead of throwing the gun behind him, they're coming forward with the gun. The last guy's on the end. And I think was when he does shoot, you see the guys make those same movements. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It just looks like it's weird.
Yeah,
slow it down.
Yeah, the movement
these
itself
flinches.
is weird. Yeah,
Yeah.
that could be back.
Now,
Yeah.
what about when he does shoot? When he finally, you see Gene Wilder, his hands go to his sides for a second, and then we've got this like rapid. Everyone drops their guns in succession, and it comes right back with him his arms folded. What do you guys think of that?
I love that.
That's one of the best edits I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it calls back to earlier where you don't see how fast he is, and again, like, it's just like, this guy's so fast you can't even see it.
Yeah.
I do like that they at least let him put his hands to his side for a second. We see just that glimpse
Yeah.
of him putting his hands down, and they speed up the film a few times where that sped up look doesn't look sped up to my eye.
Right. Yeah.
Because it always looks a little too herky-jerky when you're trying to do like a fast fight or a fast, car chase, trying to make it look faster than it actually was.
Yeah.
But this looked really, really good with the camera pushing across all these guys as they're throwing their guns back and grabbing their wrist.
Yeah. I guess because it would be that fast. If he's like shooting them that fast and they're getting hit with bullets and their guns are getting shot out with bullets, that would be a quick thing like that. It would be that fast. So it doesn't
And I
look
think
that
if you tried to show Gene Wilder shooting that fast, I think that would look silly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be kind
Definitely.
of ridiculous.
Like, I think that's one of those things that's a lot funnier if you imagine it than if you see it.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah. No, you have to let that be something in your mind. Right around 46 seconds. I think this is another one of those sort of edits out of order, because it looks like the shot where we've got 3 of the Cowboys and Taggart to the far side. It looks like they're already clapping before they're being asked to clap.
Oh, weird.
Because they're all like touching their hands.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to the other guys who are just holding their hands. And then later we're going to see him do the kind of that similar movement when he asks them about, don't just sit there grasping your hands in pain. Walt, yesterday we talked about when Taggart called him boy, and he took such offense to that. You know, it wasn't about the N-word. It wasn't about anything else. It was about deriding him and his badge, like he was pretending to be a sheriff. What do you think about him now taking not only charge, but pulling the gun out, cocking it, and saying,
How about a little applause?
Yeah, this is definitely his victory dance, but it's also, you know, kind of serves as a warning to these guys that he's got the upper hand and he's not to be messed with.
I feel like, you know how we talked about how Gene Wilder loves chess, but he ends up getting beaten by Sheriff Bart. Sheriff Bart beats him at chess. I almost feel like he just said checkmate with the gun.
Yeah, pretty much.
Definitely.
And I like we had all those clicks from the other guys, you know, cocking their guns earlier, but his click is the one that really stands out. And like he's the guy that's
But
in
that's
charge.
the thing about
And
that
that,
other
like-
scene. Nobody cocked their guns. Nobody ever cocked their hammer back, even though you heard all the little click, click, click.
Mm.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Actually, when Lyle pulls his out of his holster, he cocks his back.
Lyle does, but
And
when
then
you see the
next time
lineup of all the guns,
Yeah.
there's none of the hammers are
It
back.
is not cocked back. Right. So they had a little issue there.
You know, these guys, they're making a movie. We're not worrying about shooting people for real.
Had you ever noticed any of this before you watched it 1 minute
I
at a
had
time?
noticed that I always bothered me the flinching of the hands, but I never noticed that the hammers weren't pulled back until I really, literally stopped it frame by frame as I was going through this and going, holy crap, they got clicking sounds, but not a single hammer's gone back. You guys know where they're shooting this, right? You guys are Star Trek fans.
I was wondering, is this out by, is that Vasquez Rocks? Is that what
These are
that
the
is?
Vasquez rocks in the
It
background.
is.
Nice.
I don't see the Gorn. Apparently, they told him that
Yeah.
you're not allowed in this one. But
Do you think Bart would give up his pistol for just a sharp stick or a club or some sulfur and a bamboo pole and some gravel and
Some diamonds.
Yeah.
What, a 6-foot rope?
Yeah.
Which is a more satisfying fight, Tom?
Well, you know what? I gotta say, just the shot of Gene Wilder is so satisfying and so funny and so cool.
Yeah.
I think that has Kirk fighting a big rubber monster beat. Don't tell anybody I said that. I'm gonna get kicked out of many, many clubs.
before we get back to that very end line, when it's obvious that the Waco Kid has disarmed everybody with as fast as he was able to shoot the guns out of their hands, I love this sort of callback to the 70s thing. Gene Wilder puts both hands out. Everybody's slapping him like high fives or giving him five, which would not have happened
Yeah, I
in
love
the
that
Old
too.
West, but it's such a 70s thing here to slap a high. It's not even a high five. It's just give me five.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's
Yeah.
a ton of stuff throughout this movie. Like obviously at the end they go berserk and they're in 1974 and they're on the studio lot and everything. But even throughout the movie, there is a lot of anachronistic but fun. Baby and cool and just like slight slang that they use sometimes. It's just completely out of place but totally awesome. And you kind of get what they're doing. Yeah, it totally works.
Yeah. And I feel like even like, all these kind of spangly things on their gloves and their wrist things like Lyle and Taggart have. Like they could have walked into a bar, on the Sunset Strip in 1974 and they would have fit in just fine.
You know what's funny though? We actually had a cowboy historian on. The Cowboys, because they had spent so long just being out in the middle of nowhere, there's actually a whole thing of artwork where they would actually but sort of like emboss or bead their saddles. They would engrave their guns. They would just to make them stand out.
Wow, yeah, that makes
so
sense. Yeah.
Those wrist guards are very close. They're not 100% identical, but they are actually close to what those guys would have worn.
That's cool.
Huh. Oh,
I don't know if it would have been like in
Yeah.
a star pattern, like on Taggart's gloves, where it looks like somebody bedazzled a 70s disco star.
Yeah.
But they would have had.
I think it's with Lyle between that and the black leather vest. I think there's just something that feels very 1970s about that.
Yeah.
But I can also see how that could have been
I believe what our cowboy historian said is they're dressed close, but not exactly.
That's better than most.
This is how a Hollywood version of the West would be. So it's close, but it's not entirely accurate.
Yeah.
Oh, we end with all the guys. And by the way, Walt, I want to get into this because we've been talking about Charlie and how natural he is. I mean, he is dancing and hooping and hollering and having a good time right after the Waco Kid does his thing. Yeah. I mean, he is like running in place, and these guys are happy that their guy they thought was hung, which he said, and you was right, but their guy just beat not just Lyle and all the railroad guys, but Taggart as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm watching a Bart and Gilliam commercial because I wanted to see if he wore the wrist guards in the commercials that he does. And he does not. He has the whole rest of the outfit, the black hat, the vest, the red shirt, and the trousers, but he does not wear the wrist guards in the commercials. So, I guess the bedazzling only lasts for a good 15 years. Once disco died, the bedazzlers went away. So I guess I'll now have to post that when that commercial when we get to this minute. But
well, we're ending this minute with the line.
Well, don't just sit there looking stupid, grasping your hands in pain. How about a little applause for the Waco?
We actually never get the full word kid. We know that's what's coming up. So before we sort of close the books on this minute and get ready for tomorrow, let me go to our guests first, because I've used this joke many times, but you guys are our guests. We are your hosts. So Tom, we'll go to you first. Do you have anything in your notes that we skipped over or want to go back to?
I don't think so. I think we kind of nailed it. The only thing I don't have a natural place to say this within the minute, so I'll just say that I watched the movie for the first time recently. What's Up, Doc? And there's a lot of overlap between these two movies. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Peter Bogdanovich with Barbara Streisand and Ryan O'Neal, and it was like a huge like slapstick, like 1971 or 2, I think. Really, like tons of people who should be in Mel Brooks movies and tons of people who are in Mel Brooks movies and tons of people from this movie. Like it's Madeline Kahn's first movie, and John Hillerman's in it, and who else? There's just a bunch of the preacher from this movie is like a judge in that movie. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's an awesome movie. It's like they're obviously just having fun, just trying to make a total classic Hollywood screwball comedy in 1972. And it works, and it's awesome. And so it was fun to see just, I'd been wanting to see it for ages, and I just randomly watched it about a week ago. Yeah. And then I'm watching this, I'm like, oh boy, this is like the age of Madeline Kahn and John Hillerman and all these people and stuff. It's kind of awesome.
Well, that's crazy, because then Madeline Kahn and John Hillerman were both on Paper Moon, which is where Bart and Gilliam got his first start, because he was there to be an extra, and they kind of promoted him on the set, seeing something about him. They just liked him. And so Madeline Kahn told Bart and Gilliam, hey, we're going to work together again. And then here we are. The very next movie, he walks into a reading, and she's there, and she said, I told you we'd work together again.
Nice. Oh, what else is weird is Kenneth Mars is in What's Up, Doc, but he's not in this movie, which is bizarre, because he's such a Mel Brooks guy.
They didn't need a one-armed German cop.
I guess not. No, it wasn't in the script anywhere. They couldn't understand it themselves.
Oh, you guys are in for a treat tomorrow. You weren't there for some of our minutes that we talked about. A helper in Lily von Stupp's room, according to the script, that ended up getting dropped. It was never filmed, but he's actually in the scene tomorrow. We'll have to chat about the script versus the theatrical version. So leave a little tease for the audience to come back tomorrow.
Nice.
Pete, what about you? Your notes. Do you got anything that we need to talk about with this minute 67?
No, I think we got it all.
Walt?
Yes, actually, if you look right at the beginning of the minute and you look behind Lyle and Taggart, either a covered wagon went through there or a production truck. You can see right over Slim Pickens' right shoulder there, right off his right arm.
Oh my God, tire tracks.
Yeah. A couple of tire tracks. And then jump ahead to second 21.
Uh-huh.
And look right behind Gene. and right off of his left gun, it looks like a power pole.
Yeah, it does.
A white power pole there in the background.
Yeah.
You can see it a little bit better as you hit play and scroll through. And I at one point you can see power lines off of it. So they weren't too careful about background.
But that's totally fine in this movie because they like at no point are they like, and here we are back in the Old West for reals.
Right.
Everyone suspend your disbelief because we're really in the Old West. It's not 1974, we swear.
Yeah, and it's almost like, you think that's bad? You just wait.
Right. Soon you'll be doing the French mistake.
Yeah. Wait till you see the last 10 minutes.
I'd like to believe, though, even on a big screen, there's so many people, and Gene Wilder is like your focus, unless you're slowing it down and pausing, which wasn't available for the theatrical audience of 74. You probably wouldn't have even thought of it as anything other than maybe a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering if we go back in that same second, they're 21. What's the pipe that looks like it's coming out of the back of Charlie's head?
I was wondering if that's like a in a cabin, like a smokestack or something.
Well, yeah, I was wondering that because if you look, if we're in this same second 21 pause while we're sitting here scrutinizing frame by frame, it almost looks like there's some kind of a swooped cabin off, like just off to the right of Gene Wilder's gun. Like you see like a roof line of something back there.
Oh,
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they were like on a property that was like already a ranch and they had some buildings and they tried to hide it by putting people in the way.
Yeah, you stand right here and don't move.
Yeah.
Try not to move or jump so that way you're still covered of what's happening behind you.
I think in the minutes yesterday, I noticed that there was a tent set up, like a white tent. But I don't think that pole is from that white tent. I think that's off to his right.
Well, if you think about it, though, Walt, this actually looks completely different in a sense because when we first come up on the scene a couple of days ago or a couple of minutes ago, there were train tracks and there were tools and there were tents all over the place. And all of a sudden, it looks like there's nothing around.
Yeah, it's just barren wasteland now.
And yet, it never bothered us until now.
And now you're bothered.
All right, Walt, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right, well, we went through all the notes I had. So this has been a complete and full discussion of Minute 67. Before we set the stage for coming up tomorrow, I already introduced these guys as part of the Indiana Jones Minute, but they have other projects as well. At least I know Tom does. So, Tom, I'll go to you first again today. Since we started you through first, we'll rotate through as we go through you guys the rest of this the time we have you. What else you guys got, and where can people find you?
You can also find me, in addition to the Indiana Jones Minute, you can find me at the Blues Brothers Minute, bluesbrosminute.com. You'll never guess, we're going through the Blues Brothers. Actually, 2 minutes at a time. That's our crazy twist on the whole movies by minutes thing. And we're having a ball. Speaking of movies that have inexplicably longer versions that throw you off when you're used to the other version. Because we're watching the extended version for some reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a lot of useless stuff in there.
Is that messing you up at all?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's both messing me up a little bit and also making me appreciate the original more, the real version, as we like to call it.
Yeah,
yeah. That's a tight movie in many ways.
You know, it's funny.
It is.
It's funny because you guys did 1941, I think, as one of your Patreon shows, and the version I have on DVD is an extended, like a director's cut. And everything they add in it, I think, drags the movie down.
That's just what this is like. The longer version of Blues Brothers is just like that. It's stuff you don't need. It's like, they try to explain why the car is like a super car and stuff. And like, no. Please just give me the movie.
All they had to say is it's a souped up cop movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
cop shocks, cop brakes. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. All right. Well, Pete, what about you?
The only other podcast I've done with my friends Sean German, who I think was on your show on Blazing Saddles earlier, and Christopher Dennis DeGuardia, we did a National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation Days, where we talked about the movie National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation one day at a time, since that movie takes place over about 5 days.
Aw, we did that last year for a Patreon show.
I know. Yeah, I
got
remember
suckered.
that.
I left my voting open to like allow people to put other movies in. I thought we had limited it to the 4 I wanted to do.
Oh, big mistake. Yeah.
Well,
give the people what you want them to want.
It was a good exercise for me. A little bit like Opus Dei. I had to sort of like self-flagellate through that movie. So
yeah, I actually can't stand that movie.
Nine times out of 10, with everything you have ever said, I'm like, I'm exactly in Pete's camp on this. And I was like,
So here's what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm putting up a poll. It's going to have one question. It's going to say, should Pete and Alan have to do Christmas Vacation 1 minute
together?
at a time?
Oh my God, it'd be easy.
Together.
We would just go, okay, here it is, and it's done. Bye.
Yeah.
It'd be one dynamiting after another.
Well, where can people, if they want to go back and check that out, or depending when they stumble across these minutes, if they're like thinking, hey, this close to the holidays, I want to go find the Christmas Vacation that Pete Mummert's in, where can they find it?
Just look up National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation Days in your podcatcher of choice, and there will be.
Fantastic. Walt, I know it feels weird to ask, where can people learn more about us? They're already here, but you never know. People don't know about maybe our listeners group. So how do people get more engaged with us?
Well, what they're going to want to do is go over to facebook.com/The Wilder Ride, follow that page, and then click on the button to join our listeners group. And you'll just be asked a couple of real quick questions just to make sure you're an actual human. And then you can join our group and join in all the conversations there. We've got all kinds of crazy stuff, fun information, and some good discussions going. And
I want to encourage everybody to please come on back tomorrow. We've got these guys for a couple more days. We'll have Tom Taylor and Pete Mummert join us tomorrow for Minute 68. It's Igor's favorite day of the week tomorrow. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. And so we will start the minute with the rest of Sheriff Bart's line. He started off with applause for the Waco, and we're going to end it with Kid, but we'll end the minute with, wait a minute, she said Army. But to find out what the Army is all about and who said what to whom, you got to come back tomorrow for this, The Wilder Ride. I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Well, now you got me depressed.
If I was to cancel those other two guys from coming back, would that pick you up some?
No, that wasn't who I had in mind.
Oh. Yes.
Blame them.
Yes, you would be right. No, just kidding.
Well, hopefully I may have some
right.
cat-related noise, so hopefully that will be at a minimum. But my cats have learned how to open the door upstairs to come downstairs, and they cry
Really?
outside the door of the library where I am. So.
Well, it's okay. Before you guys joined, Walt got to hear me yell at one of my dogs because he was like barking outside of 2 closed doors because he was being left all alone. The other 5 dogs are all looking at him like, what the hell are we? Chopped liver, you know? And he's like, I want to be with Mama. My wife's down here next to me, just like doing everything she can to ignore me. She's got her headphones in. And like, yeah, exactly.